Mr. Kildee.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and to our witnesses, thank you for your participation and your service to our country. As the nation responded to the coronavirus pandemic, workers and families, as we all recall so painfully, stayed home in order to stay safe and to keep their families safe. Many lost their paychecks and their livelihoods virtually overnight through no fault of their own. In my home state of Michigan, unemployment rose to 24% in April of 2020, just 2 months after former President Trump declared the health emergency. In response, unemployment insurance claims spiked at over 388,000 per week compared to the previous peak of 77,000 during the Great Recession. That's why, thankfully, Democrats and Republicans jointly acted swiftly to pass bipartisan legislation to get these necessary benefits in the hands of hard-working Americans as soon as they possibly could. Both parties came together to pass and extend these critical benefits through legislation such as the CARES Act. Now, looking at the continued economic growth that our country has had, these benefits did help millions of people, preventing them from losing everything they've worked for and precipitating a larger crisis. The GAO has highlighted that these payments helped keep our economy afloat and improve the labor market. Unemployment insurance kept money in people's pockets and prevented our country from falling into much deeper economic demise. Now, some have argued that these benefits disincentivize workers and are causing the labor shortage, despite the fact that benefits expired in September of 2021. The latest jobs report obviously would indicate otherwise. In February of 2023, the Department of Labor reported that unemployment was at 3.4%, the lowest since 1969. And I recognize the distinction when it comes to labor participation rates, but you just have to look at the data and see that labor participation rates are really less than a point off where they were 3 years ago, at what many would have considered to be peak economic activity. Now, the economy grew at 2.9% last quarter, more than 12 million new jobs created in just the last 2 years. Not only were these benefits good for the economy, they were a lifeline for workers when they most needed it. People were worried about putting food on the table, keeping a roof over their head, paying for basics like medicine. I would like to just mention, these are human stories. My own constituents benefited from these important benefits, supported again by both sides of the aisle. Kathy and Timothy from Flint told me that the payments were hugely impactful. Timothy was a musician at weddings and festivals and corporate events. Kathy's job in health insurance, they were able to provide and care for their oldest daughter as a result of these benefits. Timothy often worked nights to make sure that he did not have to hire a caregiver. These benefits made a difference. People like Carla in Bay City, a self-employed cosmetologist, but due to the pandemic, she lost her main source of income. Without these benefits, she would have been in a very difficult position, would have lost everything she's worked for. Those are just a couple of the instances, and of course, we all know, all of us have had literally thousands of these cases come before us. No one, I think, ever should indicate that we think this system worked perfectly. We know of these difficulties. We know of the problems, and they're real and they're serious and absolutely have to be addressed. But I do think it's important that we not fall into the trap of somehow conflating the bipartisan decision that we all made to make sure that these benefits were quickly delivered to people at a time when, in order to protect themselves, they had to stay home. Now, there's a debate in some revisionist history about just how difficult those moments were. We didn't know what the future was going to be. Fast forward, 1 million Americans died. It would have been millions more had we not allowed people to make the decisions that they needed to do to protect themselves without having to lose everything that they've worked for. So let's pledge that we'll work to fix these problems. Let's pledge that we can come together to try to address these issues of fraud. The money was stolen not just from the taxpayers, but actually from needed help to additional workers. We need to go after this, but let's not make the mistake of somehow deciding that we never should have done this in the first place. We never should have supplied this help. We certainly should have. And now we need to do what we can to make sure that we can reclaim the integrity and the aspects of the program that actually failed. So with that, Mr. Chairman, thanks for holding this hearing. I yield back.